Welcome to another episode of the I Own a Business podcast. I'm Dr. Steve Vargo, and today we have a fascinating discussion with Dr. Bart Higley, an IDOC member and owner of New England Eyeworks. Dr. Higley has built a highly successful optometry practice without accepting vision plans, a bold choice that many might find challenging and even a little scary. In our conversation, Dr. Higley shares the strategies behind his cash pay model, the advantages of focusing on quality care, and the critical role of branding and patient experience. We'll dive into metrics, marketing tactics, and how to manage patient expectations, providing valuable insights for any practice owner considering a shift away from traditional vision plans. Stay tuned for an inspiring and informative episode. Hi, welcome to another episode of I Own a Business, where we focus on helping practice owners grow the practice of their dreams. I'm your host, Dr. Steve Vargo, and I have with me Dr. Bart Higley, who is an IDOC member and also owner of New England Eyeworks. And Dr. Higley is in a position that many practice owners would like to be in, but maybe they're just not sure how to make it succeed. Dr. Higley, who operates a very successful practice, by the way, does not accept, nor has he ever accepted, vision plans. So, hey, Bart, how you been?
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
So, one caveat about your situation is that you, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the practice that you purchased never did take vision plans. So you were not forced to have to drop insurance. But I still think that your story and what you have to share is definitely relevant in terms of successfully operating this model. So maybe we'll just start there. If you could share your story with us of running an optometry practice that's never accepted vision plans since you purchased it over, I believe, 8 years ago.
So, yeah, Steve. I mean, definitely. So going back to the beginning, I graduated in 2012 and I entered into this practice, my first practice. And yes, they didn't accept vision plans at the time. They hadn't been accepting it for, I think, at least 10 years prior. And so I had a lot of mentorship going in. And, for 4 years, and that was the benefit of, spending some time as an associate for 4 years is getting a mentorship. Um, So yeah, I mean, the big thing for going through it was there was kind of like a point in time that they had stopped it when they realized things were starting to kind of infiltrate more. So they're pretty smart in the beginning, So it was like, oh wow, a lot of our cash pay is lessening, and so they took a look at it. The previous owner and the manager at the time, which is a big part of it, they said, we've got to look at this. And I think it was kind of funny that the defining moment was when they were sitting at a table with selling, I think it must have been like a $1,000 pair of glasses or something. And right next door, there was a vision plan patient. And, it was much less in terms of the cost and frankly, the quality. And they just thought it's like, I cannot talk about this $1,000 pair of glasses, or I'm sitting that next to somebody, who's having a very different experience in terms of the cost, in terms of the quality. So that was kind of the defining moment. So fast forwarding up to 2012, so they brought me on. There's, I've had fortunately a lot of help from like consultants, it's some of the industry, talking to a lot of people. A lot of people take plans, not take plans, and it kind of evolved into when I took over in 2016, saying, what, there's no point, why take plans? We have a thriving practice. So a lot of the you know going through it, I think what sharing with you is that there's a lot of benefits. First off, and I think a lot of doctors, frankly, know this. Before we went on, I was like, I hope I have something to offer to say, because I know a lot of people know, these benefits, and I think a lot of it's the fear of kind of the unknown and dropping plans. But I'll share some of my stories. Is that we, being a cash pay optical, we're allowed to have free control over the brand, and so I think that's the biggest, when I was thinking through this, that was the biggest benefit that you have. And you have the ability to, as you know, choose your lab, choose your product, sell what you want, sell how you want it, and how much. And, when we're talking about kind of a brand difference, taking some of the really lower end plans, and I won't go any names, but one of the biggest complaints I hear, from patients or going online and reading other practices reviews that may be taking some of these plans is there's a very big difference between the quality of the cash pay and the quality of the vision plan. And so the downside is the patient doesn't know that. They just think it's the practice. And so when they are on, the football field watching their kid play and they're saying, "Wow, I've got this pair of glasses, the temple broke after 3 months." They're not going to say, "Oh, vision plan patient got this." The person next to them's going, "Well, where did you get this?" "Well, iWorks," or whatever, wherever they went. And so you can't really control that. And that's when, if we talk about 80% of people are getting referrals, some of the marketing plan, a lot of people say, oh, it's 80%, it's from word of mouth. That's the word of mouth you're getting. And so if you don't have that control over it, it can make it very difficult. So, when we're running it, we have a one single pay option. And, in terms of glasses, we just give the best quality. It's not good, better, best. It's just the best. And I think it makes it very easy for us to have that discussion with patients, and be able to talk to them, and they gain the they gain the practice quality through the product. And so that's the biggest one. Naturally, cash pay. I mean, come on. I'm sitting. We do sit with a lot of different other practices when we compare. I was part of a consulting kind of group there that, we all knew what we made. We all knew about what our gross revenue is, and consistently our gross revenue on a one doctor practice at the time. Right now, we're considered at least a two doctor, three doctor practice, in need of associate, by the way. But we would say, basically, I would say that we were producing as much, if not more, than at least a two doctor practice. And when we went to two doctors, at least is not more than a three, maybe even four doctor practice. And so thinking about that, the profitability, there's a lot of benefits on that. Um, so yeah, I mean, see if that's kind of where we're at.
Can you elaborate on the messaging to patients? Because you said something that you're absolutely right. Patients don't know. I mean, they
Right.
don't know. And you're going to be the one because you're the face. The practice is the face. The doctor's the face. So if something goes wrong, they're not going to blame the lab. You
Right.
know all these things. Every doctor knows these
Right.
things, but the patients don't necessarily know them. How do you get that message in front of the patient so they understand that going with an option that doesn't require them to work within the constraints of their vision plan gives them better quality and more options as well?
That's a good question, Steve. I mean, you know, I was thinking about that because, some of the questions we were kind of talking about. There's not really a lot of a secret sauce. It's not like I don't feel that we're doing anything different in terms of exam. We're still doing handoffs. We're still presenting the options. We're still discussing, the benefits of, what are glasses with AR, with, whatever. But I think it's kind of the whole model together. When we built our building, um, first off, we wanted to basically deliver, kind of on the quality that we have. And so, meaning we really kind of brought in, I think, a higher end experience. And so when you kind of come into it, I feel like patients come in just kind of knowing, okay, you're probably going to spend some money here. This is probably going to be a good place. And I think they would have that kind of in the back of their mind. When we sit down there, we're just giving a basic, I mean, a basic option. I mean, you say, Dr. Higley recommends the progressive, and this is our progressive. This is how it's different. We talk about digital surface, and it come in all pre-coded with AR. It's just one progressive, and so that progressive is going to work, for, you know, it's a higher quality product. It's not going to be, well, you can get this option because it's less expensive, or, this option, but it's going to be better. This is why. I think it's just kind of how we deliver the message that way. I
So
hope.
there's a lot of simplification there, which is a
Yeah,
great
very
thing
simple.
to, I suppose it's working for you. And I think one
Right,
thing that everybody in business should constantly be doing is experimenting. Now we could have the debate over, there's definitely too many choices.
right,
You walk into an optical and you're surrounded by 800 frames. If somebody's not there helping you streamline the decision making process, it's just too many choices. There's research showing that is what's the right number of choices? Is it three?
right,
Is it two? If it's only
right,
one, it forces you to say yes or no. Where if there's two, first forces you to pick between the two. But you got to find what works for you.
right,
And the let me go back a second. Then, as far as the messaging goes, I call up your office and I say, I'd like to make an appointment. I have XYZ insurance.
right.
What does your staff say at that point? How do you structure the conversation so I don't hear as the patient, you don't take me or you don't take my insurance, so you don't take me.
Yeah, good question. I mean, so the key strategy, so yes, okay, they come in, they have X and X vision insurance. We have actually, what I'll share with you is we have this kind of, I want to call it like a discount plan, more of like kind of a match plan, if you will, in-house. So, and a lot of doctors do that. It's very simple. Again, we're about very simplicity. You don't want to be on the phone kind of discussing all these different things with the patients, along with getting their demographics. So, but the idea is more of, okay, oh, we don't take that vision plan, but we actually take most medical plans. What's your medical plan? Oh, it's, X. Great, we take that. And for your vision, if you do want to get glasses here, we have this option too. It matches up to X amount of money, in terms of the what you get from vision plan. I mean, I'm not going to say, I'll be honest, people are going to come in and they're going to sometimes not buy glasses here. Sometimes they come in for the exam. They like the experience, but they say, my vision plan goes over, here, so I'm going to go over here. We have a lot of patients that go, and actually, frankly, across the street, to use their vision plan. But we still have that opportunity with them, and our capture rate has still stayed very good. So, on the other side too, we have a lot of we're high, like to consider ourselves very high medical, treat a lot of medical dry glaucoma. And then there's that aspect. We're able to care in that regard. The other thing though is that because there are patients, once they get into the chair here, they have a bad experience somewhere with their quote unquote vision plan. Oh, I can tell you many, many times they say, you know what, I'm just getting glasses here. I'm going outside my plan because I had this bad experience. And or not even a bad, just it wasn't, maybe the glasses didn't come back like they expected. But I think, when they're in the office, I keep talking about the brand. I mean, what is a brand? A brand is basically a promise you make about your products and services you deliver on every single time. It all packages together. It's not just glasses or exam or this, it's the facility, it's your team, it's your glasses, everything together is the brand. If they're trusting you with the other stuff, a lot of times they go in and trust you on the optical line against outside of their plan. And that's just what we found, but
Have you read the Pumpkin Plan?
yes.
Good. Okay. So, well, otherwise, I was going to ask if you're familiar with the premise of it. So it's very much about building a brand that doesn't necessarily cater to everybody. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to make an assumption here. You're not necessarily trying to cater to every patient. So by you, and I'm curious, what has the experience been for you in terms of um, the type of patients that come in? I'm not saying anything
Right. Of
disparaging about people that
course.
don't have the means to
Right.
spend more money on eyewear or fairly want to use their vision plans that they pay for. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you make a strategic decision as a practice owner not to take vision plans, do you see a shift at that point in the type of patients that come in, and perhaps less of a focus on people coming in wanting to get the cheapest eyewear and a higher percentage of people coming in that are actually looking for a higher quality of both service and product?
Yes and yes. I mean, it filters out. I mean, again, I don't have the experience of dropping down vision plans. However, what I can share with you is that I see every single time when people are coming in. So first off, our demographic, our target is mature females. in that 45, 50 plus, give or take 10 years. The sweet spot in terms of income, the sweet spot in terms of, wanting fashionable style, wanting to take care of themselves. And so on that note, we have this saying in the practice that we have somebody comes in that just like, let's say it's not even just, cash, not buying glasses. It's maybe we have a very difficult experience with them. Our saying is always, well, that's not our patient. That's not our patient. That's a patient for somebody else, whoever it is. But it kind of filters out, so we have somebody come in, they don't like your service, they're going to go somewhere else. They don't like the prices, they're going to go somewhere else, so, and then it opens up the slot for a patient that does. And I think frankly that's how we should all be operating. I mean, vision plans are great, and I think what we take is we have to understand what they are and what they aren't. And what they are is a marketing strategy. What they're not is insurance. We're paying on the same, and this might be the question you're having later, but we're paying on a marketing expense every single time they come in. So let's say you pay $150 for your exam, they discount it to 70. That's an $80 marketing expense every single time they come in. So, I mean, when they're driving towards their practice and you have all of these plans that you're accepting, you're going to get kind of everybody. And if they're really only accepting or coming to you because, oh, well, you are the only one that takes my plan, is that really what we want in order to create our business? And it's a question, for me, it wasn't, we wanted a very specific, not a specific even, I mean, we wanted a very, a certain type of patient demographic. And, we get all walks of life. We get always up to 90, down to 10 years old. But, that mentality, we want them to sign up for our screenings. We do a screening, a checklist in the beginning. We want people to care about their health of their eyes. We want them to, buy the higher quality products because we feel it's better. And so, I mean, long answer to the question.
So, some indirect benefits here that I want to repeat or at least point out. I'm sure you've experienced this. So, we talked before about simplification. When people go
Right.
out, they've got one option. It makes it really simple for the patient. For the consumer, that's one thing that consumer research has found is that as consumers, we want someone to make the buying decision easy for us. And I want people to pay attention to that, both
Sure.
doctors, opticians, if you're listening to this, all the choices and all the complexity and all the, medical terminology. It doesn't help. It just confuses people. It's overwhelming. So the simpler you can make it. But do you find that just not having to do the billing, because it's a tremendous amount of administrative red tape in an office, creates so much room for you to do other things? And also, you mentioned a good point about the marketing. Absolutely right. Is vision plans are for better or worse, they are a marketing tool, but you can take that money and put it into other forms of
Right.
marketing. So maybe a two-part question here. How has not having to deal with vision plans simplified things in the office? But also, if you could elaborate a little bit more on maybe what is your approach to marketing, since obviously you're not dependent
Yeah.
or leaning on third-party insurance, at
Right.
least not vision plans.
So to answer the first question, from what I've heard, yeah, it's a very big nightmare, in terms of billing, as I understand. And
It's nice to not know for you.
yeah.
There's a lot of doctors going,
Oh
wow,
no, I mean,
that level of ignorance must be must be liberating. But
yeah, well,
continue.
no, it is, but is I mean, in the same sense, Steve, like I like the idea to be able to know that I can run a general optometric practice, meaning, there was a time I was like, I don't know much about vision plans. I need to actually research it, and understand more about it. Because, maybe the decision I'm making is still not, what I want to do. So, but anyway, to your point, yeah, we don't have to deal with it. But I did spend a lot of time looking into how it worked, and it does seem like a nightmare. But yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's just basic billing. It's like anything, any other medical professional. We actually hire ours out. We farm out, and we'll just post the fees, and they take it and bill for us. But in terms of marketing, so yeah, I mean, when you're looking at it, so yes, you can say, okay, well, if it's $80 an exam, let's multiply it by the 600 that I'm losing from vision plans, multiply to $80, and okay, now that's our marketing cost that we can spend in a free range for. You can do that. We don't typically do that. We're not as sophisticated in that. But what we do is we hire out, certainly with our website, our social media, and actually through an IDOC service. Um, I'm a big proponent of considering the facility, and I brought that up before, the facility as a marketing expense. And it's not a direct marketing expense, but it needs to be considered to that. Location, everything you put into the furniture, the fixtures, how nice it looks. That's a marketing expense. I'll give you a kind of example. One of the things that we did do with the new facility is that we wanted a very low, more of a kind of very streamlined approach. We moved every kind of computer. We're on iPads. The computers are kind of tucked in the back. Everything in the optical, they're just on iPads. Anything we feel that is like a cord or anything that is cluttered is just friction between the patient and the optician. So we built that kind of high-tech feel, that high-tech look, and that's a marketing expense. I mean, when people come in, yes, it's not drawing the patient in. Where they come in, like I said before, it's, wow, okay, we're going to get some good quality here. If I'm looking for the Zenni optical, excuse me, if I'm looking for the online optical, really low ends, low cost, this is not going to be for me. And hopefully we weed them out in the beginning. We don't waste our time. We don't waste theirs. So, there's events we've done. We do a couple events, at least once or twice a year. Trunk shows and stuff like that. We really blow out. And then there's traditional marketing. Our particular area does respond very well with traditional marketing as well. So yes, you do have a lot more dollars to spend on it. And you can look at it as, well, I'm not discounting my plans and having to spend that every single year. And, the attraction of bringing somebody in is a one-time expense. And then you have them through your recall system.
A while back, I was talking to somebody who has worked really closely with a lot of practices that are distancing themselves from vision plans. So he works with a company that you might maybe be able to figure this out. And they handle a lot of the out of network patients.
Okay.
And I said, and I talked to him and I said, in your experience working with different practices, what are the keys to being able to do this successfully? And he said two things: loyalty and specialization. And he said, again, the situation is a little bit different because it's practices that probably did take vision plans and now they're dropping them. And he said, you're going to find out all that hard work you've put in, or you said you did, because everybody says they have great customer service, but you're
Right.
going to find out how good of a job you did when you stop taking their plans. And he says it's a wide range of the percentage of patients that will stay with the practice. But he also said specialty, which a lot of practices are not starting to, but really making a more meaningful part of their practice. And I think the lines are now getting blurred on what's traditional care and what's specialty, because I think so many practices in a good way are implementing specialties that maybe someday, quote unquote, the medical model or myopia management or vision therapy, it won't necessarily be specialty as much as it'll just be going to your eye doctor and these services are offered. But what is your take on that as far as, and is there anything you'd have to add to that? Two of the most important components in getting away from insurance: loyalty and specialization.
No, absolutely. And to back up to your point, I think it's actually already starting to become that. This is just optometry. I mean, how many people have an IPL now? How many people
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
glaucoma care? And you're absolutely right. And in the beginning, that's when I first took over, that was my main mission, is to specialize, and specialize in the sense that adding new specialty services in here, and garnering is as many as we can out there. We jumped on a dry eye, we jumped in myopic control, we jumped into a few other things. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, yes, the cash pay services there do bode well for this type of practice setting. If you're limiting, so I guess to your point though, then it's if you're limiting your success on simply just optical, I think you have a higher chance of doing very well, in this type of model.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still a very major part of typical practices revenue. And I don't think his point was to go, you know, a majority of your business towards specialty, but it was more to try to buffer yourself against some of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
inevitable lost business
no,
that's going to
absolutely.
come through. But he did make a point that I've heard over and over, that if you have been providing a high level of service and people leave you, a lot of them do come back. And I've heard enough doctors, I was kind of skeptical of that in the beginning, and I've heard enough doctors now say that at this point that I believe there's a lot of truth to that. Um, you're a numbers guy. As far as metrics, tracking metrics under this model, is there anything you particularly find important when it comes to monitoring the financials or the metrics of a practice when navigating away or not taking vision plans?
I think personally, I feel that probably if we had one number to monitor, I would choose collections per OD hour. That's a kind of a way to kind of even out the playing field amongst everything. So if, okay, so you have somebody that wants to drop vision plans, monitor your collections per hour. If it's at least the same or higher, you're winning. It's regardless of where things go. I think we get so caught up in okay, my schedule's now not booked out 7 months or whatever it is, with when they had before. Maybe it's booked out 2 weeks. Maybe it's not booked out at all, and your exams per hour maybe went down or so. I think we get so caught up in the popularity contest that we forget to look at the actual numbers of the revenue, and that's really where it boils down to. Can we afford? And that's where the concern comes from. Can we afford the staff? Can we afford my same lifestyle? The revenue or collections per hour in particular will probably go up. I mean, it's most likely going to happen unless you're cranking through a lot of vision plan patients every hour. And then thus your collections per exam are going to go up. And so I would say those are the factors. If you want to get deep, collections per exam, the exams per hour, and probably capture rate if you want to monitor that. Capture rate's going to be important. And I didn't mean to allude to the fact that optical is not important. It absolutely is. And I mean, opticals are our highest revenue source right now. But one second, sorry. But yeah, so sorry, Steve, my computer's going.
We almost made it. We had glitches last time.
Yeah,
We almost made it. I
we
got
can
like
edit
2
this out,
questions
right?
left.
Okay.
Come on, computer.
No, we're good. I think we're good. All right, whatever. What were we at? Sorry.
I think we were just you were talking about optical, and
Yeah.
that was a
Yes. Yeah. So I didn't make, so optical is a very big part of the optometry business. And so capture it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is one thing that I would say you as a practitioner, your opticians need to really be, I guess, paying attention to your sales sophistication, I suppose you'd say. Because I can see where, okay, I have a vision plan, I have a benefit, I want to use it every year. Maybe that drives up capture rate pretty easily. But if you're putting in the right tools into place, there's plenty of resources out there in order to train your staff on that too. It should be fine, and even if it drops down, you're still getting way more revenue per patient on that. So.
We talked before we jumped on about the fear that a lot of doctors what may prevent them from moving forward with dropping plans is fear of what's going to happen.
Right.
How much lost business will I incur? But we both agreed on something that we're both hearing from more and more doctors that are dropping plans. And I think we go back 5 years or so, maybe longer, that this talk of dropping vision plans was kind of this veiled threat. Everybody was talking about it and people were threatening to do it, but nobody was really doing it. We're both seeing more and more practices doing it. So, what would you say to, obviously you're proof it can be done. And if it gives assurance or reassurance to somebody who's thinking about doing it, most of the practices that I've seen that have either dropped vision plans or significantly scaled back have actually done pretty well with it and are very happy that they did it. But what advice would you give to optometrists who are hesitant about making this change?
Yeah. I guess I'd like to start by just quickly backing up. I want to make clear that I'm not against vision plans. What I'm for is a good business decision. And I think this leads up to your question, but what we do is I think, looking at first what your end game of the practice is and what your business plan is, and then reviewing exactly why you want to drop it. There's some plans, and frankly, every year we do review. We review whether, okay, will this make sense? Do we need that patient base? Do we need that quote unquote marketing expense? And each year we've said no, but we still review it. And I think if you're understanding why you want to drop it, some patients, I've heard some docs say, I am a single doctor practice. I don't want to be running as crazy I am, and I want to be more profitable, and I want, to maybe take a step back a year, and or a day, a week, and that's going to help me get there. And I've also had patients that are in aggressive growth mode without dropping, without vision plans, wanting to expand. We are, in that category. So understanding why. So for us, we just didn't need it. You know, I didn't need it because Other came into the practice, and it was already thriving in that piece. So what we were doing is just running it, and each year we decided to not take it. We realized that we didn't need that extra marketing expense. When you're running the numbers, really look at each plan and understand why, or what you're getting from each plan. I've heard a lot of practitioners said, wow, when I went through this one plan, this represents 30% of my patient base, but 10% of my revenue. And that's a huge difference, huge problem. I mean, basically what it's saying is, if you're booked out any more than maybe 3 or 4 weeks, all of those patients that are waiting could be in that chair that you're taking for that 10% of the revenue. And I would say probably try to remove some of the emotions. I think there's a lot of visceral angst about that, oh my God, they're as much as a haircut, or, oh, I should be worth more. And you are worth more. The difference is, what you're doing is, when you're signing that plan, you're saying, yes, I agree with these terms. In the end, they're a business just like yours. And, when you're collaborating with somebody like that, we need to be choosing companies and partnering with them who share your vision and share your business ideals. And I think that's kind of where it gets tricky. And then, so when we get that remotion, we're looking at basically a business decision. And when you're running the numbers, I think a lot of times you'll see that it probably will make sense, and sometimes it won't. Sometimes it's scaling back the plans. A lot of dentists still take Delta Dental, not to throw in a name, but don't take any other dental plans. And I think it's the same kind of thing. We don't have to go all or none. So that's my advice.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because we are not, I mean, IDOC has never taken a strong stance really for or against vision plans. The majority of our members do take vision plans, and that model for many of them works very well. That's just the reality of it. I see the numbers. What we're seeing, though, are trends toward wanting to try a different model. So interviews like this I enjoy, because it gives insight into a different way of doing things, if you think that's a good decision. But the thing that I would highly suggest before you do it, which is, I had already written down some terms before you even talked about the emotional impact of it.
Yeah.
That scares me, when people want to drop plans because they're mad, or because their feelings got hurt because they haven't gotten a raise, or social media told them to. Have a strategy. Don't do it because you're angry or emotional, or because you don't feel valued. Just have a strategy. It's a business decision. Pull emotion out of it and come up with a plan to be able to survive and thrive without vision plans, if that's what you want to do, if that's what you determine is the right fit for your model and your practice.
Right. And I would also have to say, I mean, there's a lot of, I don't want to say, okay, excuses, but some people say, oh, well, you're in an area, like your particular area is better. For my area, I can't do it. I'd like to challenge that in a lot of cases too. the question I usually ask is, okay, well, my area is infiltrated by 50% of X vision plan. My question to them is usually, what about the other 50%? I mean, how many are cash pay? Or, what about just going forward for them? I think there's a lot of kind of like barriers that I feel kind of put up if you actually want to do it. Like you said, if you don't want to do it, fine. But I don't know. I just open up the mind, outside the box. Think outside the box a little bit, I think.
Yeah. And we'll close out here. I wasn't going to get into this, but the other thing I hear a lot about that I don't think gets talked enough in our profession is burnout. And what I hear, and it's probably more prevalent with the vision plans because it requires you to adopt a more high volume practice. Burnout is off the charts right now, not just within optometry, but across the whole healthcare spectrum.
Right.
And I think that's a driving force for a lot of doctors and probably should be. You went into this I think it's fair to expect or want or strive for a certain lifestyle. And I'm sure you didn't put yourself through all those years of school and take out all
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
debt to be miserable, to be burned out, to be stressed out all the time. So again, it's not a guaranteed path,
Right.
but the model of going with a model that is less dependent on vision plans, I think has a higher likelihood of putting you in a position where you can operate a practice with
Right.
less chance for burnout. What are your thoughts on that?
No, good question. I mean, Steve, I would say yes, it's a avenue. I still get burnt out, so, I think in healthcare, that's just a reality, but you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're cranking out 4 patients per hour, and I know I've talked to practices done that. One practice that comes to mind was 30 patients a day, single doc, comprehensive, not office visits. And, I looked at him, I was like, man, how do you do that? And he was actually fine, that he delegated a lot. He's like, that's just how I've always done it. I've liked it. But, I think, and I think what started with it was a thread. We were kind of talking this over. You reached out to me is that, I think what you got to kind of decide is how do you want to live? How do you want to practice first? There's not one way to practice. And, when you get out of school or you start owning a business, I think you got to spend probably a good amount of time deciding what the end game is. How do you want to be? If I see any more than 21 patients, including an office visit, it's not a good day for me. It's just too much for me. Regardless how much delegation, it's still all on my shoulders. So, I knew that. And so, again, going to that 4 patients an hour when we talk about that vision plan route, well, you can make it up by doing this much, it's just not what I want to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good um, a good place to end here, but also a reminder that if you haven't done it or you haven't done it in a while, give some thought to what are you trying to build? What is the
Right.
dream? What is the vision? Where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years? You may never get there, but if you don't have that vision to begin with, you don't really know what you're striving for. And then I'm a big believer in reverse engineering things.
Yeah.
So look at where you want to get to and then say, well,
Yeah.
what are the things I need to start putting in place? What are the changes that I need to make to get there? And I think a lot of times the journey is more rewarding than
Yeah.
than the end point, but
Right.
keep moving in a direction that's going to put you toward the kind of career and the kind of life you want. And don't undervalue or forget that you got into this
Absolutely.
with a certain expectation of a certain lifestyle, and don't be afraid to admit that and just do everything you can to try to achieve that.
Absolutely. It's a great profession and you're never stuck. There's many avenues you can do.
Well, thanks. Really appreciate this, Bart. Yeah, we had connected on a thread that got really interesting with some people talking about how they were interested or had
Yeah.
executed, like yourself, on making the decision to part ways with vision plans. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime, Steve. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bart, and thanks everyone for listening. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening, leave a review, and share it with your friends and colleagues. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And to learn more about IDOC, you can visit our website at idoc.net. That's IDOC.net. And you can check out links in our show notes for some helpful resources for your practice. So see you next time and keep dreaming big.